Hey, peace, people. This is Sool. I'm here with Nate once again. Welcome to episode 5 of Politics as Usual. And today we want to talk about the budget. I know everybody talking about the hearing of Comey in front of Congress, but we're going to talk about the budget. So before we get into that, Nate, did you want to talk about Comey and the FBI, Congress, Trump investigations, or you want to get straight into the budget?
No, I think we can just get straight into the budget. If we want to touch on that, we could touch on that later. But I think the budget is the issue for me right now.
All right, go ahead. I know you want to comment. You got a few questions. Go ahead.
I do. I do. So Sue, so back in 2008, 2007, when Vice President Biden, that time just candidate Biden, was running for office, he actually made a statement, and that kind of stuck with me. Vice President Biden, which was candidate Biden at that time, said that his father always told him, if you show me your budget, I will show you what you value. Dealing with this current Trump administration budget, where do you think his values lie? Just simply there. And we'll go into particulars in a minute. But where do you think his values really lie when it comes down to the American people and his budget? To make and remember that this was all about making America great again.
Right. His values lie with his class. Most of the budget is for people in his financial class. It's a lot of tax cuts, just with the healthcare budget in general. I know he's trying to pass that off on Paul Ryan, but it's both of their plans. So not let him do that. The budget. The military budget he increased it by 10%, $54 million in it.
$54 million.
Yep. So you increasing the military budget at the same time you cut in domestic programs, you cut in programs for the poor. So that's where it lies. You cut in Meals on Wheels, you cut in after school programs, you cut in programs for the homeless. So that should tell you and you cut in federal agencies. You cut in Department of Energy, basically all federal cabinet agencies except for Department of Veterans Affairs and Homeland Security, basically. So that should tell you all you need to know about it. It tells you the direction he wants to go in. He wants to go into more military expansion, and that's just the opposite of what he campaigned on. Because you remember when he was campaigning, he said he was going to do the opposite. But now he's sending more troops to Syria, hence the increase in the budget in the Defense Department. And he said he was going to protect Social Security entitlements. He had people in his administration actively working right now to cut entitlements. There's major cuts in Medicaid, all these programs. So if you don't see it by now, I think you never will.
Yeah, and so let me ask you another question there before I even comment on the budget. What is his supporters thinking right now and feeling? I'm talking about not his rich elite supporters, but I'm talking about his day-to-day Americans that wanted change.
Caught a personality.
Yeah.
Caught a personality, and Americans, we good for this. We good for this because, Nate, as you know, I criticized a lot of people on our side about this same issue with President Obama. Now, don't get me wrong. I don't think President Obama is nowhere near as destructive as President Trump is. However, a lot of people on our side fell into that caught personality when President Obama would do something that went against our interests. People would defend him no matter what. And you're seeing his supporters do that as well. But his supporters even taking it to a new level, because I just seen something where it was this lady. She was a Trump supporter. Her premiums went down. And that was because of the Affordable Care Act. And she said, I thank God and President Trump for this. Now, she thought it was Trump care. She thought it was President Trump's healthcare bill. Now, you know, they haven't even voted on President Trump's healthcare bill.
Mm-hmm.
It's all due to President Obama. But this lady, no matter what, even if you presented her with the facts, she would not tell you that was because the Affordable Care Act or something that President Obama did. So this is the problem right here. You have people just stuck in partisan divide. It's team Republican, team Democrat. There's a lot of his supporters too. Let's be honest, a lot of his supporters like him because he's going against the others. He says all sorts of racist things about Black people. We already know that. We went over that a few other times. I'm just going to reiterate that. Housing discriminations against Black people, birtherisms with President Obama was strictly a racist ideology he was pushing. Telling people to punch Black people in the face, all sorts of stuff. The immigration thing, activating the national wall, the National Guard, talking about building the wall, putting border patrol against the wall, Muslim bans. A lot of his supporters like that type of stuff. So until it directly affects them and he does harm directly to their family where it's clear where they can't even run for it no more, that's the only way they're going to turn against them. But right now, a new poll just came out. He's at 37%. So his polls are going down right now.
Yeah, and he is the lowest. I think he has the lowest approval rating right now of any president, if I'm not mistaken, at this stage of the game.
Going back to Truman in 1945, because that's when they started keeping tabs of it.
Right. And so going back to the budget, I think you were spot on everywhere. And my thing is, well, you're trying to take food out of grandmama and granddaddy's mouth, okay? That's a little cutthroat, man. That's an issue where there are people who are shut in, who cannot get out of their houses. Some people don't even leave their house or their apartment, and they depend on these meals being delivered for them. This is just documented fact. Matter of fact, Chris Collins was on CNN in the town hall, and he talked about it. And he said, look, pretty much his family benefited from that. So now you got to a point where people are now saying, okay, I'm not going, you don't buy that one? You don't buy that one?
Well, no, I do buy it, and I do believe him. But, he's a Congress member around my area. Even before he was a congressman, he was the county executive of Erie County until he lost to Poland Czars. Nobody know who Poland Czars is unless you were in this area right here, but he lost to a Democrat. So I'm familiar with Chris Collins. It's funny that he says this. He said that he wouldn't even support a $1 cut to Meals on Wheels. Why? Because it directly affected what? His family. His grandmother was on Meals on Wheels. And I'm telling you, this is the philosophy of a lot of people. Like I was just telling you before, unless it directly affects them, they not going, they just going to keep making excuses. It had to be a financial crisis for President George W. Bush to get down to like 25%.
Yeah.
So that's why I was smiling like that. That's it.
Okay. All right. And then my second one there. So like I said, you're going to take the food out of grandmama's mouth and granddaddy's mouth. And that's just deep. So now you got the most vulnerable people, right? You have older people, people in the geriatric age, and then you also have children. Now, the other side of his budget cut, where he's cutting after-school funding as well as funding in education. Now, with his appointee for Secretary of Education, we can see why a little bit, but to cut after-school programs and to have it footnote inside of the budget that after-school programs have not proven outcomes for student achievement. First of all, it alarms me that someone would be running this country don't even understand the whole connection between after-school programs help keep children engaged, therefore keep them out of the streets and out of being killed or committing a crime. Now, this is the same law and order candidate. And the fact that the law and order candidate can't put these two together, but he's for more stop and frisk, we have to then begin to ask ourselves a question. Does he really value children or people who can't even defend themselves? who is he really making America great for right now? That's my question to you. But help me out, Sue. And I know we don't get into this on our show, but I think right now we got to be clear cut. When we're talking about our budget, like I said, Joe Biden said, show me your budget, I'll show you what you value. This administration has already shown that they don't value our older people in our country, our older citizens, and they don't value our children. So we're in the middle of this thing. So what do they value? Who are they making this thing great for? I'm very confused.
He's making it great again for the people in his class. That's it. That's the only thing he cares about. He cares about, I won't even say he cared about people in his class. He cares about making money. So if people in his class make more money, he might be able to do another deal, So that's what he cares about. He doesn't care about all those poor, rural voters that voted for him. He could care less about them. He could care less about them. And you mentioned stop and frisk. We're not going to get into this, but I just want to let people know that don't get it twisted. Stop and frisk is still happening, even in New York City. Even though supposedly they stopped doing it, they still definitely doing it. Back to you mentioned the school budgets and cutting after school programs. You're absolutely right. You are 100% right. Saying that after school programs doesn't have a benefit is crazy, because after school programs keep kids with something to do, and it helps out a lot. And like you said, this is the person that said he want to cut down crime. But you got to remember, I don't think he cares about the, children actually learning, especially poor children. He want law and order. What he means by that is he want to increase funding for local police departments, continue to have them be militarized. He want to give them more weapons, and defense contractors and weapon makers make more money. He also want to give more money to private prisons, because as we mentioned earlier, he reversed the order President Obama had to basically phase out private prisons on the federal level. Him and Jeff Sessions overturned that. So they're going to build more private prisons and cut after school programs, give police departments more money. You see where this leads.
And we're talking about putting the National Guard out there in Chicago. And okay, so Sue, you know how we come. What can people do at their local level to even discuss this budget, to help inform people that, hey, we're not going for this budget, and this budget's ridiculous?
Well, let's be clear that this budget as stands now is not going to pass, because the Congress never approved a presidential budget. Now, I know a lot of people think, okay, President Trump came out with his budget. Sometimes people can get confused and say, okay, this is going to be the budget. No, it doesn't work like that. Congress actually sets the budget. What the president budget is from the executive branch, which is the president, it basically gives a suggestion to Congress of where the executive branch want the budget to go. Now, since Congress is controlled, both the House and Senate, by Republicans, a lot of those priorities are going to take place. But like you said, Chris Collins, who is a Republican, already said that he's not going to support any cuts for Meals on Wheels. So let's be clear, this budget is not going to pass. There's going to be some subtle changes, but that shouldn't make you feel that much more comfortable, because who is in control of the House of Representatives? It is Paul Ryan. And, Paul Ryan is friendlier than Trump, but a lot of his policies is just as extreme, maybe even more extreme than Trump's in certain areas. So as far as your question is about the local area, I mean, we talk about this all the time. You continue to fight back in your local area. You can have your cities set certain budgets and maybe allocate certain money to some of these programs that the federal government is cut.
Like the after school program is what you're saying.
Like the after school programs, because I know here locally we have programs. I'm sure they probably do get block grants from the federal government, but you know, maybe some of these local cities might have to try to you know, to pick up the slack where they can with it, because I know we got organizations in my area that do Head Start, that do after school programs. They have community centers all around the city. It could be a situation where, you know, these cities might have to step up and maybe even be creative. You know, you have crowdfunding now where people give money for all sorts of stuff. Sometimes I think some of these local governments might need to be creative. They might have to create a Kickstarter, a GoFundMe for after school programs from the whole city. Now, is that guaranteed success? No, it's not guaranteed, but these are the type of ideas we got to start thinking about. And this is how some of these governments going to have to, local governments going to have to start thinking. Are they going to be able to get a little bit more money from the states, which might be hard because the majority of the states are controlled by Republican governors right now. Right. So for the areas where we actually control locally, we're going to have to start thinking outside the box.
Yeah. Yeah, no, very, very good information, Sue. And I just think that we just got to continue to educate our followers and our viewers there, because, you know, there are things that we can do on the level. It's just as also civic leaders too. So if we know we have a community center in our area, you know, how can we make sure that we get together a group of people where we go in there and volunteer? Or is it where, and let's even talk about the biggest part about after school programs that people don't know is that most after school programs give students that third meal of the day. So we all know when students and children are in school, especially in high poverty areas, you know, they have their breakfast, they have their lunch, but that after school, sometimes students get a full dinner, and those students who don't get a full dinner, they get a really good, you know, nice snack and, you know, something to kind of put on their bellies. So it may be that we need to get engaged and we need to say, okay, how do we get funds so we can support this after this community center right here? Or how do we go to our local school and say, hey, what can we do to get engaged here? Because if we see these cuts and these things starting to come, we don't need to wait till it happens. We need to go ahead and prepare and support.
Be proactive.
Yeah, because, you know, what do you do if you got a kid who's going into a store and they're going to steal something because they don't have that after school program no more, and they're hungry and they're not eating to the next morning? And I know I've worked with students before where I've had students, you know, at a school that I've worked at, like first thing in the morning, man, I'm talking about the sun is not out. It's an hour before school start, and you talk to them and that child's like, hey, actually, we didn't eat last night, and I'm ready for breakfast. And this is just the reality that we face. And I think that if we just sit back and we allow these type of things to happen, and we allow a whole administration to put a budget that's targeting people who are very vulnerable and to be unapologetic about it, I really think that we're drifting further and further as a country. So, Sue, my next question here, right? Because I know in the streets, I talk to a lot of people. People are really upset about the budget. And I think the danger zone that we're getting into, and this is just fact, and I'll ask anybody, go survey people. But especially a lot of young people, they're really starting to lose faith in our electoral process as far as who we elect, but then also they're starting to lose faith in our system and our society as it is. Like, so many people are really nervous and really turned off. So I wanted your feedback there. Are you kind of seeing the same thing politically from people, to where I would hope that people would be more engaged, like, hey, we got to go do this. But I'm actually seeing people more like, man, I'm done with this, man. This is just not, there's nothing I can do about it. Kind of.
Yeah, it's a difficult situation, man, because, you know, I'm in the politics. And I'm not gonna lie, I'm gonna be completely honest.
Right.
There's certain days where I kind of feel like that, you know, and I actually, you know, is really into this. But the story I told you earlier about the Trump voter that thought her savings with the Affordable Care Act was because of President Trump, just the ignorance there is like the ignorance and lack of knowledge is so deep that it's like, can we even penetrate this sometimes? That's how I think. I'm like, it's just so deep that I don't know, you know, if no matter how much we educate people will really work, because let's be honest, some people just want to believe what they want to believe. They want to believe in the lie. You want to believe in the lie. Like the Matrix movie, dude, like, you know, the dude that wanted to go back into the Matrix.
Yep,
some
he
people
did.
never left the Matrix, you know what I'm saying? So some people actually want to believe the lie, but you can't give up hope, because if you give up hope, I mean, what is there to live for, you know? So, and things have looked bleak before, because I know a lot of people think this is the worst time in human history, but no, human history have always been rough since the beginning of time, man. It's always been situations that people had to overcome, and you can't give up. You can't. I mean, if we would have gave up back in the day, you'd probably still be in those chains, man. Might still have Jim Crow law. So it takes time, and I think one of the things we have to start teaching people is, especially with the younger generation, we have to start teaching long-term strategies, because this stuff is not going to change overnight. A lot of people get discouraged because they want that instant gratification, and unfortunately it usually doesn't work like that, man. You make a little bit of progress and you try to keep the progress that you made and slowly gain some more progress, because this is a long battle, man. This is a long battle, so you can't get discouraged. I mean, I would tell them like this: how did you feel when in '08 and when, you know, Barack Obama became president? Because you remember, we were saying it would never be a black president. No matter how you feel about his policies, you know, I'm not the biggest President Obama fan in the world, but, you know, I remember how I felt, you know, during that time. It was a proud moment, even though it didn't turn out as well as I might have liked it to. It still was a moment, and we gotta build on that. And, you know, 8 years later, we elect basically open white supremacist that put open white supremacists in his cabinet. So that should be a lesson of how quickly things can change. From one extreme to the other extreme.
Really
how
quick.
It can change. So you just gotta keep grinding, man. You really do. You really do. If you keep grinding, good things will happen.
Yeah, I agree with you, man. This is chess, not checkers, for real. You got to have long-term strategy. And you know what? And let's stay with the chess analogy just quickly. So so I'm gonna stick with chess for a second. Then I'm gonna go back to your Matrix reference there, which is very good, by the way. But, you know, in chess, you know, you actually have to adapt to your opponent. You have to figure out what strategy is your opponent using, and then you have to beat them to the punch with implementing your strategy. So I won't, you know, and the best checker players, and, you know, and you talk to them, they'll tell you they never play the same way. They kind of adjust to their opponent. Now, they have certain tendencies that they stick with, but they really try to see and get somebody to fall into their trap. But they're really trying to really figure out what is that person's strategy. Now, back to your Matrix reference, you know, I think it's very powerful. It goes back to your lady with the healthcare, but, you know, let's be real. Like, what was his name? Cyrus, I think it was Cyrus, whatever his name was. But he was literally like, hey, I know this steak is not real.
Right.
But I miss the feeling of this thing melting in my mouth. And, You're right. Now we're to the point where people are like, we know that this is not real, but we want this anyway. Um, and I just think that's a very dangerous view and a very dangerous crossroads that we're at as a country. You know, that's all I
Yeah,
wanted to say there. But
but
definitely,
yeah, and we gotta realize we never gonna get through to everybody. We
nah,
just not. It's impossible. So, we just gotta do what we can do. And just to make this point a little bit stronger, what I was saying earlier about how quickly things can change. Look back to what was happening. You had the civil rights era, right? And then from the civil rights era, morphed into the Black Power area in the same type of time frame. But CONTELPRO kind of
hmm
destroyed that, and then after we got a little bit of rights, not even full rights, a lot of people in that generation got comfortable. A lot of people got bought off. You know, so you remember. Then there was the crack era. We was in a rough state. Then in the early '90s, you remember that Black culture, that Black consciousness was coming back. It was making a comeback.
yep,
And then that disappeared again.
yep, yep,
We got comfortable again. During the Bush administration, a lot of people started to wake up a little bit, especially after Katrina happened.
hmm hmm
And then, President Obama got elected. People got comfortable again.
fell
Didn't
back
watch what
asleep.
he was doing.
hmm
People fell back to sleep. And now the election of Trump was so jarring to people that, slowly some people were starting to turn around again. But my fear is, once we actually get this fool out of office, and I don't think he's going to last long, people going to get comfortable again. And like I was saying before, Mike Pence is just as dangerous, maybe even more dangerous. So the lesson is, even when we make a little bit of progress, you
Right,
can't act like we won the Super Bowl. You
right,
know, we win a game, we win one game in the preseason, we act like we won the championship.
right,
So once we make these games, we got to continue to work,
right,
and we have to protect. We have
right,
to protect what we gain, and then we have to go forward from there. We get
right.
too comfortable too easily, and a lot of us play too much. I like to have fun too, but you have to be a balance. We did a show yesterday. We had a show where we had some fun. We was talking about some good issues, but we kept it fun too. But it's a balance, man. It's time to be serious, and like a lot of us don't like to talk about these serious issues, and it's up to people like me and you to go out here and actually lead by example, because you can't go out there and preach to people and wave your finger at them. You got to go out there in your community yourself and start doing what you do, whether your area's expertise is economics, whether you want to try to build an economic base, whether you want to do it with education and you want to mentor people, whatever you feel like you got to do, because it's a lot of areas where we need to conquer. Find an area and work at it. You don't have to do everything at once, because that's overwhelming. But find your niche and work for the cause.
Right, right. Absolutely. Definitely, man. And just to kind of add to what you're talking about right now, I kind of think about it like this. A lot of people don't like, and this goes to what you're talking about. You're talking about that long strategic plan, right?
Mhm.
So a lot of people don't like the New England Patriots. But the reason why I like that organization, I know I have to say it, but this is why I like the organization. Right after the Super Bowl, what did Bill Belichick say? In his Super Bowl speech, he literally told the crowd, we are actually 5 days behind right after they won. There
Yeah.
is no complacency. There is no, oh, we're in the Super Bowl this year. It's literally Super Bowl or bust. And they took that approach like, oh my God, think about this now. How many of us would have fell asleep where we came back from 28, 20, 25 points down and be celebrating like, yeah, we won the Super Bowl. But he's literally like, we're 5 days down. And not only that, the New England Patriots have been the most aggressive right now in free agency. You want to know
Yeah.
why? Because he realized that the Atlanta Falcons had them down. 28 points. And until we get that sense of urgency as a group of people to say that we have to build our systems up too, that we're actually playing from behind, and we really are. We're not caught up yet, even though what a lot of people say we're not. You know, we're trying to get Always for Black up and running. Always for Black should be national, far as in my mind, and going. And we're gonna keep grinding this out until we get it there. But there is not a lot of raw media sites where people can come and get the real about politics, but also too where people of color can go and they can understand what the two hosts are talking about, right?
Right.
So we're not there. We don't have our media agency, because not even BET is always black, right? So
Right.
you know, we're to the point where we don't have our networks. We don't own our radio stations. We don't control our music. You know, I think Jay-Z and everybody with Tidal is starting to do it. So when I say this, politically, going back to our show, we got a lot of work to do to start getting on certain areas. You know, how do we get politicians who reflect us and speak the voice of our people? And right now, I don't see enough people speaking up for us as a group of people.
We don't, and we get sidetracked. My problem is these people in the positions, they don't talk about the stuff that's really coming down the line, stuff that's really going to affect us. The census is coming up, 2020. I don't even think people understand.
2020 is real.
Right. I don't think people understand how important the census is. Like, just talk to them. I think most people know that, you know, they take account of basically how many people is in the country, but I don't know if they realize how
This is
important.
how you get. Mm-hmm.
Like, that's when the lines is drawn. That's how gerrymandering happens.
Mm-hmm.
So, and gerrymandering, again, for those of you who don't know what that is, that's basically where they pack a district. Like, they might put a group of black people in one district, and they have one representative from there, where it's supposed to be a few different districts. And basically what it leads to is, you know, more Republicans and conservatives controlling certain areas.
Yep.
And it basically limit, and even if you, let's not even go there. Basically, I want to say it limits the choices of a community.
Absolutely.
You know, it limits it. It is really important. The census is really important, and I don't hear nobody making that point.
Right. And definitely at the local level. That's what people got to understand. Definitely at the local level,
Right.
where you meet in your neighborhood community meetings, your city council, your county council, heck, even a lot of your school zone lines. So you're right. Absolutely.
And again, we don't talk about this environment. Like, we got somebody that sued the EPA as the head of the EPA right now. Now, a lot of us think of those type of issues as white liberal issues, but it really affects our community. Look at Flint. You know, and Flint is not the only city with lead in the water.
Trust me, if that's one, there's many.
There's many, and there's reports that there's some areas right now in the United States where the lead level is actually worse than it was in Flint. And, you know, how many black politicians and black leaders do we really hear banking this point home? You know, so it's up to us to think about these type of issues. And I blame, it's so frustrating with the media don't talk about this. The Democrats, they talk about it in a way where it doesn't relate to people. They talk about global warming. Why do, I understand, you know, they just market it all wrong. They need to just stick with pollution.
Yeah.
Like environmental hazards. Instead, they do this whole climate change issues, which is real. The climate is changing, but that's hard for people to understand. They should just keep it with, we know that pollution in the environment leads to disastrous effects. Like when lead was everywhere, what, in the 70s? You had lead. We got rid of lead.
All that stuff.
Right. So they marketed all wrong. They need to market it the way people can understand.
Mm-hmm.
But that's my issue, man. We don't talk about a lot of issues that really need to be talked about.
Yeah. You know, and moving forward, I think those are some issues that we're going to jump into more. I definitely think that the budget is just something that we wanted to talk about today to kind of wake people up, to kind of get people kind of thinking about, you know, number one, what can you be doing in your own communities? But number two, we need to keep an eye on these things. You know, we've been asleep for too long. This is not the time to go to sleep. Even if your eyes are heavy, this is not the time to go to sleep. We need to be up.
Not at all. Not at all. So, man, great show.
Yep.
Anything else you want to add?
Nah, I think that was pretty. We went for it tonight, man.
We went for it. And just to let y'all know, we're gonna start talking about. We always gonna talk about politics a little bit every show, but you know, in future shows we might get a little bit of business too. You know, because that affects us too. We definitely on that group of economics and economic development as well, which is really important for, you know, our communities.
Right.
So, you know, the more economic power you have, the more political power you have. So we want to start talking about that a little bit as well. And we're going to start getting some guests pretty soon on here too. So we working for y'all.
Definitely.
All right.
All right.
This is Sool signing off.
All right. This is Nate. Peace.
Oh, before I peace out too, make sure if you're not checking out, alwaysblack.com is coming really soon. Site is definitely almost done. But until then, you can still check out our programs on Blog Talk. We do a different type of show on Blog Talk than we do here. But we still be dropping knowledge there too. But, you know,
Hey, Sue, did you shout out Miss Baba tonight, man?
Don't
get us in trouble.
Baba. You know, shout out to her. Shout out to Jay as well, my other co-host of the podcast. So yeah, we doing it, man. But all right, man, we gonna be out here. Peace.
All right, man. Peace.